ॐ श्री गणेशाय नमः। ॐ श्री सरस्वत्यै नमः। ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। लोकाभिरामं रणरङ्गधीरं राजीवनेत्रं रघुवंशनाथं कारुण्यरूपं करुणाकरं तं श्रीरामचन्द्रं शरणं प्रपद्ये। श्रीरामचन्द्रं शरणं प्रपद्ये। अतुलितबलधामं हेमशैलाभदेहं दनुजवनकृशानुं ज्ञानिनामग्रगण्यं सकलगुणनिधानं वानराणामधीशं रघुपतिप्रियभक्तं वातजातं नमामि। रघुपतिप्रियभक्तं वातजातं नमामि। ॐ ध्यायामि चिन्मयानन्दं गुरुदेवं महामतिं प्रेमपूर्णं क्रियाशीलं सदा लोकहिते रतं कृपालुं सुन्दराकारं समर्थं सत्यदर्शिनं वाचा तत्त्वप्रकाशिन्या शोकमोहविनाशिनम्। ॐ श्रीचिन्मयसद्गुरवे नमः। Hari Om and a very warm welcome to this wonderful topic, Navada Bhakti, during this series. As we always do, we will start with the Nam Sankirtan and then get into the topic. Shri Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Jaya Ram. 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 Jaya Jaya Ram. Jaya Jaya Ram. Ramaya Ramabhadraya Ramachandraya Vedhase Raghunathaaya Nathaya Sitayaः Pataye Namaha. Finite things can only bring finite results. This all of us know. Only an infinite source can give us that infinite happiness. And the irony is, all of us want that infinite happiness, but all of us knowing very well that the world is impermanent, we are seeking that infinite happiness from very finite, flimsy aspects of the world, things and beings of the world. And the second part is, we want that happiness not to change at all. We want that happiness permanently. Sukha prapti, dukkha nivritti is our main agenda of the whole life. And we also have failed to understand that there cannot be one. Life means both. Life means sukha, dukkha, labha, nashta, ninda, stuti, mana, apamana. This is life. The focus in our thinking is knowing very well that the whole thing is ephemeral, whole thing is flimsy, whole thing is impermanent. On what basis are we seeking infinite happiness from these finite things and beings? That remains a question until we probably get the answer. And what is the answer? Jivan Mukti alone is the answer. There are three types of people. We are now talking of that we know. In fact, very interestingly, Vedanta starts with only what we know. Parampuja Gurudev always would say, you have to go to the unknown only through the known. Because the destination is unknown. How do I reach there? I have to take the support of those which I know, and with the help of that which I know, and what happens to it in time becomes our source of analysis, our subject for analysis. Now, the three types which we generally commonly know, what are they? The first type are people who are very physically oriented. When I say physically oriented, for them, the upkeeping of the body, comfort of the body, pleasures of the body is the main focus. They are not worried about anything else in life. And that very factor develops what is called as selfishness in them. This selfishness at the initial stage is to such an extent that they are not bothered about their own family members either, let alone the world. Let alone the relatives and neighbors and community, society, etc. Even with reference to the family members, they first look for their own physical comfort, their own physical pleasures, and they are not generally bothered about the others. This is the first stage. Let us suppose, it's only an example again. Let us suppose there are 5 people in a family. And there are 7 sweets kept on the table. You will find how the mind reacts. There is 2 extra. If there is 2 extra, who will take that? Can I get one? That is the mind. The mind will not say, if I divide the two in, it will be 4 pieces, let the others take. It is okay. If I take one sweet, it is enough. Mind will not think like that. Will I get an extra share? Or can I get one sweet extra? The other sweet you divide into 4 and all of you take. This is how human mind has been working generally. Whenever I speak with the general standpoint, exception sustained. This is a standard instruction, like how we give in the banks, standard instruction. Whenever I speak, generally what happens in the world is what we speak, and exceptions are always there. And as it is said, exceptions prove the rule, because it is an exception. So commonly you find the mind thinks of what is the best I can get, and very interestingly, I don't mind the other people getting a share of it, but I should get a better share. This is mind. So this is called people who are physically oriented. Then we have the second variety, who are very sentimentally oriented. I am carefully saying sentimentally because emotions are the beauty in human being. So I cannot say emotionally oriented. And what is the difference between the two? Emotions are my basic nature. Love, compassion, unity, oneness, caring for others. These are all beautiful emotions which Bhagavan has given to us right from the birth. What is important here to know is, though we have those emotions inborn in us, like how in the gadgets you say inbuilt. Similarly, these emotions are inbuilt in us. It is there. But the difference is, I mix up between emotions and sentiments. What is a sentiment? Sentiments are those which is not my nature, point number 1. Point number 2, it has an external dependency factor. Like for example, I am very dependent upon my two-wheeler. I am extremely dependent upon certain gadgets like mobile phone today. People are so dependent, people are so addicted to that mobile. Now, to what extent? Wherever they go, they want to carry the mobile. Without mobile, their life as though their heart does not beat. To that extent we have reached today. That is the quantum of dependency what we have on the external things and beings. And the concept here is, if it is there, I am happy. If it is not there, I am not happy. So what decides my inner happiness is the external factor, and because of my emotions wrongly attached to it and wrongly dependent on that. Therefore, we misunderstand emotions to be sentiments and we become a very sentimental personality. Param Pujya Gurudev would always say, in fact, you can find this, he saying several times, sentimental personality. A person who is so much dependent upon the external factors for inner joy. These are called, though generally emotional personality we may say, I would put it as sentimental personality. This is the second variety. And here I am very attached to my family people. I am very attached to my community, my race. I am attached to my area, my field of activity, my office, my vehicle, etc. etc. This my has no limits. And the third variety is that category which has people who are very rationally oriented, highly intellectual personality. For them, no sentiments, they are not much worried about the body and physical aspect of it. They are purely into logic. This we can very easily find amongst all of us. The people who are highly intellectual are always people who march ahead in their profession, and they go to a very high position, and they are very highly paid also. But actually, if you honestly see, they don't actually work so much as a laborer who lifts heavy baggages and heavy materials and then runs here and there and then sweats and toils. He appears to be working heavily when compared to an officer who probably would come at 11 o'clock and go away by 12:30, 1 o'clock, and then whatever he has to sign, he will sign and go away. But he is paid for what? He is paid for that intelligence. Therefore, people are very highly intellectual oriented, logic oriented. For them, this sentimentalism will not work. They don't have any affiliation towards sentimentalism, if I may coin. These three people, physically oriented, emotionally or sentimentally oriented, and the third one, intellectually oriented. These are the three types which we commonly find in our surroundings. Then one may say there is another fourth variety, Swamiji. They are spiritually oriented. We will talk about this a while later. What is the spiritually oriented? We will talk about it later, because they are a very, very uncommon section of the people. Among these three people, how are these people going to gain that happiness which is not externality based, but which is internal based, which is subjective, which is that infinite happiness born out of connection with, contact with the infinite alone. Now see, the scriptures, Shastra, have always guided people in various ways. There are several paths which are given in our Shastra for every type of people. We have classified largely into physically oriented, emotionally or sentimentally oriented, and intellectually oriented. The Shastras say the approach to happiness is acceptable, but the approach is wrongly directed. As Gurudev would put it, you have to take a U-turn, meaning from going outside and seeking happiness, you have to take a U-turn and turn within. And when you turn within, you no more seek happiness outside, but you search it within. These two words, seeking and searching. Seeking is when you look for something when you don't at all know where it is. Searching is something you look for a thing, you know that it is somewhere here, it is not visible. Seeking and searching. Now what we are trying to do is, we are seeking happiness in the external world. We don't know where it is. When we don't know where it is, what do? We imagine that type of happiness in probably a mobile, probably a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler, or some very interesting gadgets, or some comforts in the house itself, a car, a wife, children, parents, in-laws, outlaws, like that, our dependency factor expands out of our own subjective experience to all the objects and beings of the world. When I thus validate happiness in other aspects, it is for sure that we will not be able to gain the actual happiness what we are seeking. We will definitely get a lot of pleasure. Pleasure is guaranteed. In any object, pleasure is guaranteed. But that pleasure is guaranteed only for a very, 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 very insignificant period of time. A very simple example. If I am a lover of coffee, I take a cup of coffee, and you will definitely accept this thought that the first 2 or 5 sips of coffee I enjoy. After that, I may drink the coffee, but I don't know what I have drunk, because after that 5 sips or even before that, my mind has taken a diversion. What is it that which makes me divert? The diversion here is, initially I wanted coffee. Thought is so desperate. Once the coffee has come, now the mind says, okay, this I have got. Now next what? Somebody would say, let me take a newspaper along with the coffee. Very many times in very many houses you will find the elderly generation, they will be so restless for coffee in the early morning. Once the coffee comes, they will drink some 3-4 sips, keep it down, and start with the newspaper, and you will find most of them forget the coffee. And finally, because a wife might shout, they will take a cold coffee and keep it. But before that coffee, the desperateness to have the coffee is so high that there is no world without coffee, as though. This is how the mind functions. Therefore, you will find that validity of happiness in an object is so much time bound. And what am I looking for? I am looking for a happiness which is permanent, which is eternal, everlasting. And none of the gadgets or resources for which I am looking for this happiness, none of them can provide me that happiness which I actually look forward to. And the Shastras say, it is only when I direct my mind towards my inner self. We tell the children, where is Bhagavan? Bhagavan is everywhere. But actually, where is he? He is in me. So the next thought is, how do I go and seek that Bhagavan, otherwise called as happiness, in me? How do I gain the knowledge of that Bhagavan, otherwise called as my own life principle, in me? So the focus from the external, so-called broad, vast, expansive world, the focus is turned towards the inner self, which is the actual cause of real happiness. I have to seek this inner being to be happy. As long as I seek the happiness in the outer world, I may be happy, but for a very small time. Therefore, this searching, now look at that, outer world, I don't know where and what it is, but inner world, I know it is in me. Therefore, in the outer world, I seek objects, I seek situations, I seek pleasures, I seek for people, all for what? For pleasure. Be it anything in the world, be it anybody in the world, be it any situation in the world, what I actually seek is pleasure alone. And this pleasure is completely different from the actual happiness, what I really want. Frankly speaking, actually, I don't want pleasure, I want happiness. And the happiness is misunderstood. Seeking happiness, I land up in pleasure. And I misunderstand pleasure to be happiness, and I am looking for more and more happiness, within bracket, pleasure. This is the biography of everyone, from the womb to the tomb. Therefore, Shastras say, you need to change your direction to first understand where am I, and then what is my destination, and what is the path I have to follow to move from here to there. Just as if I want to go to Delhi from Mysuru, I must know what is the direction I have to travel. I have to go towards the north. If I have to go towards the north, I must find a train, or I must find a flight, or I probably go, if I am people are interested in going by on road. My direction is northwards. But what are we doing? We are actually going 180 degrees opposite direction. Instead of going to Delhi, we have taken a train towards Kanyakumari. This is what we are doing now. So what should I do? I must first understand where I am. I am now at Mysuru. What is my destination? Delhi. So what should I do? I must take the path towards north. If this is understood, apply that. I am now a jiva, and the jiva has to come to understand the Parabrahma Swarupa Paramatma, which is nowhere outside, which is in me alone. Therefore, I have to take a path within. That is why Gurudev said, you take a U-turn. You meaning what? I, the jiva, must take a U-turn from seeking outside. I must start searching inside. This ability to turn my attention within is called sadhana. An effort to reach my destination within is called sadhana. According to the type of a person, what I am, either physically oriented or emotionally oriented or intellectually oriented, based on that, I take the right path to reach within. For a physically oriented person, the Shastras advise Karma Yoga, path of action. And for a person who is sentimentally oriented, otherwise generally called emotionally oriented, path of bhakti is prescribed. And for the one who is rational thinker, the one who is intellectually oriented, for him Jnana Yoga is prescribed. All the other path, you may call it Dhyana Yoga, you may call it Raja Yoga, you may call it Upasana, you call it, so many things are available. All of them are supportive to these three paths: Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. Very many times people say, through Karma Yoga, you can get liberation. Through Bhakti Yoga, you can get liberation. Through Jnana Yoga, you can get liberation. And what is the general trend we have? The general trend is karma yoga is very difficult. Why? Physically I have to work, and I am not that capable. Swamiji, I am very weak. First of all, when I am very strong, I don't turn towards this at all. I am busy in gaining more and more pleasure. I don't have even a thought of thinking of karma yoga. Now, in the modern days, thanks to our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who has made yoga internationally popular. Therefore, now yoga has become, please understand, yoga has become a fashion. Yoga has become a fashion, and it has become a subject matter for changing my image in others' mind. Shastra doesn't talk of that yoga. Yujyate iti yogaha. Yujyate is meaning what? That which connects, that which merges with, that which comes in contact with, that which associates with. And yoga is when the Jivatma gets associated with, merges with the Paramatma, and there is no more two. Ekameva Advitiyam Brahma. This is the destination. And the same Shastra say, Jnanadevatu Kaivalyam. If you want to reach that Kaivalya Pada, Jnanameva Abhayam. One has to surrender to Jnana Yoga. But Swamiji, what about Karma Yoga? Isn't Bhakti Yoga a better, easier way? Today, let me tell you categorically. Karma Yoga is physically maybe difficult, but there is difficulty. Because the elderly people who don't have any physical health, they cannot take up to Karma Yoga in a manner of saying, because there is no strength. First of all, there is no physical strength. And because there is no physical strength, mind also will not be strong enough. Why? Oh, Swamiji, I am already 98 not out. What can I do? So Karma Yoga not possible. Jnana Yoga, Swamiji, it is not my cup of tea. Why? I cannot think like that. And there are some people, weaker people, who say, thinking, waste of time, Swamiji. So many categories are there. Bhakti is the most simplest of all. What? Go to temple, apply one vibhuti or nama or one full stop like me, and then go there, ring the bell, arati, give 10 rupees and take a ticket, archana ticket. Mama kutumbanam kshemasthirya virya vijaya ayurarogya aishwarya abhivrudyartham sarvabhisha siddhyartham sarva divya santana praptyartham. Abba. For so much of list for 10 rupees. Think. And then you go to temple and then do some pradakshina. In between, during the pradakshina, talk about the latest politics. Think. And then come, Swamiji, daily I go to temple and come. I am a very spiritual person, Swamiji. Think. We need to actually understand that the most beautiful path is the Bhakti Marga, and the most, I know my English is wrong, most difficult path is Bhakti Yoga. Jnana Yoga, I know you will laugh when I say this, is the easiest means. I am sure most of you must be laughing there. Why? In Jnana Yoga, there is only two: absolute, relative. If I have an intelligence to differentiate between the absolute and relativity, my job is done. Think. Ek maar do tukda, as they say. You analyze. This is truth, this is false. Viveka Shakti. What is Viveka Shakti? Discrimination between real and false. This intelligence can do. Why it does? The joke is knowing very well, discriminating very well between the permanent and ephemeral, real and false, conducive and unconducive, pleasant and unpleasant, good and bad, right and wrong. Everything we know. Think. When we say everything we know, I am sure many of you sitting out there will nod your head. Yes, Swamiji, I know. Then why do you do? I don't know. I know that this is not to be done, and I know it is wrong, but then I do it and then say, Chha, I should not have done. Where is the intelligence gone? This is the power of Maya. This is the power of desires. Think. Therefore, bhakti at the preliminary stage is equally important, as good as the bhakti at the highest stage. But for this bhakti at the preliminary stage to be effective, one must do karma yoga, one must also get into jnana yoga. Let me tell you today, true bhakti is the result of true jnanam. A jnani of the Atma alone can become a true bhakta. Don't get disappointed. Don't get worried. Don't feel bad. Or don't feel happy. Abba, from now I need not go to temple. Why? All that is not bhakti. No. It is this which Bhagavan Sri Ramchandra ji wanted to educate the world with the nimitta karanam called Shabari Mata in Ramayana. Bhagavan says, what exactly is bhakti and how is it the highest? In fact, karma gives purification of mind. Chittasya shuddhaye karma natu vastu palabhyate. Vastu here, Parabrahma Swarupa, will not be gained only through karma. One has to give up karma also. That means I give up all my activities. No. It has a greater meaning. But in this series, karma is not the topic. Bhakti is our topic. Navadha Bhakti is our topic. How bhakti is the ultimate, bhakti is the supreme, and what bhakti? Ananya bhakti. Avyabhicharini bhakti. It is not so easy. The best word used is Nirbhara Bhakti. In the Ramayana Sundarakanda, my topic of bhakti is never complete without chanting that shloka. Nanya spruha raghupate hridaye smadhiye satyam vadami cha bhavan akhilantaratma bhaktim prayachha raghupungava nirbharame kamadi dosharahitam kurumanasamcha. If I have to gain and ask for that Nirbhara Bhakti, which is the highest, which is after Jnanam, please understand. The Bhakti, what we all follow in the name of Bhakti, is definitely most important to set our path to Ananya Bhakti. Through karma, chitta shuddhi. Through upasana, manasthirata. And with that sthira manaha, I gain the knowledge of the Supreme, and having gained the knowledge, I enter the hall. Meaning, jnanam is a prerequisite for experience. And what is the experience? Ananya Bhakti, Avyabhicharini Bhakti, Nirbhara Bhakti, and that will bring oneness, Ekatma Bhava between the Jiva and Brahman. Now, this is our agenda. What is our agenda? Right now, what is the Bhakti I know? Right now, what is that Bhakti I don't know? And how can I reach that Bhakti, Ananya Bhakti, through these practices of Bhakti which I know? And this is beautifully depicted, beautifully given to us, beautifully directed by Bhagavan Sri Ramchandra Ji through Shabari Mata to each one of us. What is Bhakti which I know? What is the Bhakti which I should follow? And what is the Bhakti which is the result? And this in the Shastra is called Navadha Bhakti or Navavidha Bhakti. In the Tulsi Ramayana, it is called as Navadha Bhakti. In Bhagavatam and in Adhyatma Ramayana, it is called as Navavidha Bhakti. We will refer to Bhagavatam, we will refer to Adhyatma Ramayana, but we will stick to Tulsi Ramayana, where it is termed as Navadha Bhakti, where Ramchandra Ji advises Shabari Mata before she is liberated and she joins her Guru Matanga Maharishi where he is. It is a beautiful experience. Listening to Ramayana is something so beautiful, so beautiful, so beautiful. You can forget everything other than Bhagavan. And that is the only thing we are supposed to do. This Manava Janma is given to us to think of Bhagavan and reach Bhagavan. Otherwise, this is no different from animal life. Therefore, having taken the Manushya Janma, Manava Janma, let us understand through Bhakti what is real Bhakti. This will be our topic from tomorrow for the next 9 days. We will meet tomorrow morning. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. The text, the Navadha Bhakti text, will be sent through the WhatsApp, and it will also be posted in the Facebook, in the Sadhana Mandira page. A good advice would be to take a print and keep it with you. And it is just one single page. We will be posting in 2 scripts, one Devanagari and one in Kannada. You may pick up whatever you want and take a print and keep it, or you can write. It is just one page, not a very big issue. You can even write if you don't get a printout. It is definitely important to have a hard copy in front, easier. So today we will post the script, and when we take up the sessions, please have the script with you in front. It will be helpful. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om. Thank you.